Check. Check. Welcome, everyone, to Sweet Old Bills. We're going to get our coaches show started here. Thanks for everybody for coming out. A lot of exciting stuff going on throughout High Point Athletics. We'll get things rolling with Chelsea Banbury women's basketball.
All right, let's do it.
Coach, before we dive into the season that's been so far, congratulations are in order for your 100th career win, the third fastest in Big South history. Congratulations.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I was told you may not have been aware. You were so locked in on game day. You were just ready for anything. How aware were you that you were near the milestone?
I knew it was coming up at some point in the season because Reggie on my staff had brought it up, but that was about it.
And that's not the only big milestone you guys have hit this year. Knocking off UCF on the road over a Power 4 opponent, Power 5 opponent, whatever you want to say. That was a huge win. What went into that game plan, and how proud were you of everyone for that victory?
Yeah, the girls coming off of a tough loss at Stetson, they really bought into the game plan. I would say it was probably two of the best practices we had all year down at UCF, and they had good energy for each other. They knew that we could be better than we were, and bought into the game plan and executed it. And, I think started really enjoying playing together.
And now back to where we are now, 3-1 in conference so far. What have you liked about the start in conference up to this point?
At times we've moved the ball really well and shared it and started to play fast and taken good shots as a team. There for a bit, we're shooting over 50% from two, and that doesn't happen when you're taking bad shots. So that's credit to the girls and starting to get an understanding of how each other plays and who has the open shot and willing to pass up a good shot for a great shot for the team.
And team chemistry is something people talk about a lot. It feels like your team's really gelling at this part of the year, too.
Yeah, we are. Like I said, we're getting stops on defense, and they're sharing the ball and really buying into the we over me mentality and understanding that we all win. It's not just one of us, and when we play as a team, we're really good.
Something we've talked about before at this show, other conversations, Aaliyah Collins has grown more familiar in your system and everything, and I know she missed the last game against Gardner-Webb, but what have you seen from her throughout the year as she continues to evolve?
Man, she's just been tough for people to stay in front of. I mean, she's so fast, she's quick. As the season's moved on, she's become a better decision maker when she gets in there and understanding when she has a good shot or when to place her teammate. To start the year, she had a negative assist to turnover ratio, and she's positive now. She's over 1 in that category. And honestly, before she got hurt, she was shooting 72% from the field in conference play. So she's about as effective as you could get from the field. So.
And on the defensive end, we talk about her a lot on that end, on the broadcast side. It seems like she's guarding the on-ball defender, someone who's bringing up the floor. All of a sudden, she has a steal. She sets up a teammate. I mean, she has great vision on the defensive side of the floor, too.
She does. She disrupts a lot. She gets her hands on a lot. It's kind of what we were looking for from her when she came. When she was at Grand Canyon, I think she had like 96 steals or something on the season, which was one of the top in the country. So, she makes a big difference in the game, and we need her back as quickly as we can.
Hopefully she'll be okay and she's able to resume practicing and whatnot soon. How do you kind of try and fill that void? I mean, it's not easy when you have your leading scorer, one of the best defenders on the team and in the conference. Is it just the next player up mentality?
I don't think you're going to replace Aaliyah with one player. It's going to have to be the team that picks up the slack, and some people that haven't played, you're going to get minutes and you're going to get your opportunity. And, it's going to be a team effort. She is a very good player, and she's contributes a lot to what we do. So it's not just going to be one player. And, we unfortunately, as insensitive as it is, you kind of do have to think next man up, and we have to continue to play games, and we have to continue to get better. So that's what we're focused on.
The guard who drew the start was Lauren Scott. She's been a sensational shooter. Was a little off in the last game against Gardner-Webb, but by and large has hit everything in sight, it's felt like. How has her improvement continued throughout the year?
Yeah, she's just become more efficient every game, aside from the last one, but just catching it ready to shoot and understanding how to play off of that shot. She shot it well, and, people have to respect it, and they have to contest those threes, and she's also proven that she can score at the basket, get to the free throw line, and hit the pull-up. And when you can score in a variety of ways, you become a lot harder to guard. So I think she's understanding that and playing more and more off of her jump shot and getting the defense in bad spots.
She was a transfer from, I think, Division II ranks. How did kind of that relationship start when you were able to recruit her out of the transfer portal?
We actually got an email from her, and, we were just looking at transfers, and I watched her, and I looked at her stats, and I was like, hey, she can score the ball.
She can shoot it okay.
Yeah, she can shoot it. We were losing a lot of scoring from last year's team, so, we brought her on a visit, and she liked it, and now she's here.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Returner for you is Nevaeh Zavala, though, and she keeps coming off a 16-rebound performance against Gardner-Webb. Her minutes have nearly tripled this year, somewhere in that ball range. How has she continued to make an impact, not only with the rebounding, but what she can do on offense? She can stretch the floor and does a little bit of everything there.
Yeah, I think I don't even think she's as good as she can be. She is very athletic, and she is very strong, and we're trying to get in her head of how dominant she can be on the floor on both sides of the floor. So, I think we've just brushed the surface of that. She's proven that she can score it. She's proven that she can rebound the ball. And, we're just trying to get her to have that confidence of, hey, I can be a dominant player. And people need to know who I am in this league. And, it's going to take a lot to stop me.
She's not the only one of the valuable front court members, which Shakira Baskerville can bring off the bench. She had another strong scoring performance in that game against Gardner-Webb. How important is she to what you want to do on both sides?
Yeah, she is. She's, she comes in and she gives us a spark, and that's important. On good teams, when you go to your bench, you don't want it to drop off. And, when I think we go to Shaq, sometimes I think we pick it up a little bit, and she comes in and she's ready to attack, and she scores just about every single time that she gets in or she gets to the free throw line. So having her come off the bench and give us points on the offensive end, but also she's able to guard multiple positions on the defensive end has been very valuable for us.
You lose Aaliyah Collins for the injury for the short term, hopefully, of course. It seems like you have a lot of depth in that front court area. You can kind of play Anna in a couple different positions if you need to as well. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the depth of the team right now?
Yeah, when we're not banged up, I think the depth is pretty good.
That's always the question mark.
The last game, Dom didn't play either. And in our big games, Dom's been a big part of what we do. So we were definitely shorthanded at the point guard position. We should have her back for the next game, and I think she'll help that. And she adds some poise, and she can get to the basket, get to the free throw line, and shoot the ball pretty well. So, I love our depth when we're healthy, and hopefully we can maintain that.
Coming up with Longwood tomorrow, and the Lancers have kind of been a surprise team. They were picked 7th in the Big South preseason. They've been really, really active on the defensive end. They still might be the nation's leader in steals per game. I know they were up there. They may be top overall. How do you kind of try and defend Erica Lane Montgomery her second year?
We got to take care of the ball. That's what they want to do. They want to turn you over, and they want to score off of that. They don't play in the half court much. They want to speed you up and speed up the game, and so that's my job, to come up with a game plan. That's what I was doing before this, and I will head back and continue to do the same thing and get our girls ready to go for tomorrow.
One of their leading scorers and one of their best on the defensive end is Kiki McIntyre. What has she shown you, not only through this season, but in prior matchups too? Yeah,
she gets her hands on a lot. I think she already has like 71 steals or something on the season. Yeah, it's something crazy. But, you got to stay away from their strengths and play them to their weaknesses. A lot of teams show them the ball, cross over in front. We're going to work on that. You can't show them the ball. So, like I said, every team has a weakness, and we're going to play to that instead of playing to their strengths.
Longwood's had quite the improvement from last year to this year. They won just 9 games last year, but they're already 13-4. How have they kind of righted the ship in a way? Because it's a pretty dramatic turnaround, and how do you try and game plan for this year's team knowing that from last year?
Yeah, they've turned it around on the defensive end. They're much more active. They're much more athletic, and like I said, they want to play fast. And so we have to take care of the ball. They're on Synergy. They're the 6th best defense in the country, right behind West Virginia. So we've already gone against that. And so, that's something that we're going to preach to our girls is, hey, we've gone against the best, and you've seen the pressure, and you know how to handle it, and you can't freak out, play poised, and take care of the ball. We'll be fine.
And that's what goes hand in hand with playing those MTEs, those brutal non-conference schedules. You're ready for games like this with Longwood.
Yes, absolutely.
So you're coming off the loss to Gardner-Webb. What's the message to the team after the defeat when you're coming in to take on right now the conference leader as well?
Yeah, I mean, we talk about it before every game, but the game that we're playing is the most important one. You can't look ahead. You can't look behind. We have one task at hand, and right now that's to play against Longwood and to beat Longwood and execute that game plan. So that's how we're going to approach this game. That's how we've approached the games before this, and we'll continue to do that.
We're really getting into the meat of conference season. How do you try and balance the goals that you set out preseason with the goals of focusing one game at a time? Like, hey, Longwood's coming up. This is a big game, but we still want to keep in mind our ultimate goal, which is winning championships.
Yeah, I did a book club with the players that wanted to be considered for captain this year. I think I had 7 or 8 in there. And it was the power of positive leadership. But in that book, they talk about with your goals and achieving them, you have to have a microscope and you have to have a telescope. And we've talked about that. We did an exercise actually pretty recently that, our telescope it's the conference championship. It's regular season champions and the tournament champions. And yes, that's a long-term goal, but our microscope and our goals, they have to have team goals that they take care of every single day. And that's to show up with energy, to get better on those days. So we talk about the telescope and the microscope. And right now, in the meat of the season, we're focused on the microscope. But if you forget about the telescope, you let the little losses disrupt what your end goal is. And, that's something that we talk about. Yeah, we had a hiccup. That's fine. But this is our end goal. And we still have to get better today. And it's still a reality. So we've kind of taken that approach to it. And we have our microscope and we have our telescope.
Who do you think may be best at personifying those traits, the microscope and the telescope on your team? Who kind of is the glue that can keep a lot of that together?
I think the coaches, ultimately our goal is to understand where we're at as a whole and where we're at to reach that telescope goal. But I think Nakai has been really good about the day-to-day of, hey, today's not good enough. We got to do this. We have to do a better job of taking care of the ball and being vocal about that with the team.
Absolutely. Any questions for Coach before we let her go? Oh.
We don't know. We don't know.
How's the family life was the question.
Well, besides Davidson County Schools still being out of school right now, everything's good. No, family life is good, and they make it easy to understand what's really important. After Gardner-Webb, I'm upset. I come home. Hartley doesn't care. She doesn't know. Jackson's excited to see me. They keep things in perspective, and it makes it easier to separate things. And when I'm home, I got to spend time with them. And when I'm at work, I'm going to handle my business doing that. And then Greg's awesome. He's my biggest fan, and he takes care of them when I can't. And it's a team effort. But they're doing well. Thank you for asking.
Any other questions? Who's leading with Collins out?
Yeah, I think Kai's going to step up, and like I said, multiple people are going to have to. I would think Dom's going to get more minutes. Like I said, she didn't play on Saturday either, and, she's had big games. She played a ton of minutes when we were at UCF. She played a ton of minutes when we played against Davidson in those big wins, so getting her back for this next game is going to be huge, and it'll be a group effort.
Coach, we appreciate the time. Best of luck against Longwood.
Thank you.
We'll welcome Lindsay Hunnell, women's golf, to the show next. And we're just about ready to go. Coach, it's getting to be that time of the year again. How are you feeling? A little off-season preparation. The season, it's coming quicker than I'm sure everyone knows, and it's really exciting. How do you feel the off-season prep is going?
It's going. We have a little bit of an issue with all the snow around, but luckily we have an indoor facility, and our men's coach is great at letting us kind of take turns, and we're really good at sharing all the facilities. Right now we're just kind of more hitting it on the track or we went to a cycling class, just kind of getting cardio, getting them their bodies ready to be moving, getting them used to being outside in the cold and warming themselves up. But I mean, they're eager. They've been practicing all winter break, so I mean, this is business as usual for them. So they don't really take any time off, even when they go home for break. So we're ready.
What does that off-season training look like? You mentioned the cardio. You mentioned some other forms of training as well. What's the regiment look like? Because, like you said, you guys are at the mercy of the weather, essentially.
Yeah, so we just got our trainer TPI certified, so it's really good. It's Tireless Performance Institute, so it helps us strengthen certain muscles in our bodies that you need for rotation and gaining more club head speed. So pretty much in the off season, we hit the weight room a lot more, a lot harder to gain some distance, because in the winter or in the spring tournaments, they're a lot colder. The course is wet, so you're not hitting it quite as far. So just really trying to optimize our time of gaining distance and working with that if we're not allowed to be outside.
Mentally, there's no need for the weather. You can always mentally prepare 365 days a year, as they would say. How do you guys try and prepare for things mentally, especially when you're not out there playing? What's the mental preparation like in a game where there's so much that goes on between the ears?
Well, a big thing mentally that's kind of putting my girls at ease is our first tournament in the spring is going to be a match play event. So it's kind of low risk for them. It's not going to really affect their scoring averages, and it's not going to hurt them too much, but they're going to get that preparation for what we'll see at conference with match play. So they've actually all told me that they're super excited, so they're not actually nervous for the first tournament. They're excited to get to have competition head-to-heads, but if they shoot a bad score, it doesn't really matter. It's match play. So that's kind of a good thing that we've done this year.
When you get to match play, how do you coach that differently versus a regular tournament invitational?
It kind of depends just how the pairings work out. I really research the other teams and see who's playing where. If I think there's a girl who it might be a little bit more of an even match, I'll go with her, or I'll send my assistant with that one. If I think a girl's scoring average and kind of how she plays and performs in tournaments is better than her opponent, we just kind of let her go and we'll kind of track them. But if they start to slip, then we'll piggyback and kind of go off. But that's typically how we start it out.
Match play starting on the 10th and the 11th of February. How excited are you for the season as well?
I'm super excited. I think we'll be going south, so we'll have some warmer weather. But they did so much this fall, and they're really eager. We're ranked the highest we've ever been in program history, so they're super excited to keep building on that. They've made all their goals for the semester. We won 2 tournaments in the fall, and they have that they want to win 3 this spring. So they're super eager. They just want to get after it, so it's really exciting.
One of the best golfers, not only in the Big South but the country, Ella Perna. How has she continued to improve? What are your expectations for her?
Ella, I mean, she came here, she started when I started, so she's just become such a good player, and she's so strong mentally. It's just fun to watch her play because she's unlike most players that I have on my team. She's just so mentally strong and just full of grit, and she's all about the team. So even if she gets a second place and she really wanted that first, she's still excited for the team to win. I mean, I don't have expectations for her. I trust her. I think she's consistent. She knows we kind of have the same mindset, so I don't really have to put a lot of pressure on her because she kind of puts it on herself, but she performs under it. So she's awesome to have on the team.
Big South Golfer of the Year last year. What's the next step for her? Obviously, you can win the conference accolades. You can do all the great personal things. What do you try and want to see from her, not only from her own personal gain, but also to try and contribute to the team? What can she bring with that mental aspect to everyone else?
I'm slowly kind of giving her more of a leadership role. Next year she'll be a senior, so getting her used to kind of telling the team if they need to kick it into gear, kind of holding them accountable. So she's getting more comfortable in that aspect of the team instead of just kind of being in the background. Now she's becoming one that they all look up to. Golf-wise, I mean, she really wants to win a tournament individually. She's had 2 runner-ups. One unknowingly that she didn't know she was in contention and happy with the finish, and then one where she came in the final day knowing she was leading and she didn't quite get it. So that's really big and eager on her plate. I know she would love to win the Big South individually, so then she can go at least to regionals, but she wants the team to come with her. So I think that's the biggest thing on her plate is like she's just eager for a win.
Anna Howerton was Freshman of the Year last season. What does she do to differentiate herself from the pack? What does she bring to the table?
She's just incredible. She has the lowest scoring average right now on the team. When she tees it up, she can honestly win every tournament she walks into. So we've just kind of come about getting her more confident in her game and her mentality. She's got the best swing I've seen. Like, she spins it. She's just incredible to watch, but she just mentally has to know that she's there. So we're just kind of working on that and getting her used to knowing that every time she tees up, she can win versus being kind of nervous to be there. And she also started playing that number 1 spot, and she's a little uncomfortable with it, but we're trying to show her, like, this is kind of where you belong. You need to get used to this.
How do you kind of instill that mindset in someone? Because that's not always easy. Someone who has all the physical gifts, the mental fortitude as well. How do you try and instill that in a talented golfer?
Yeah, I think it's just getting her used to being in those positions and not making it seem like it's a shock or it's a big deal. It's also really nice that her and Ella are roommates and best friends, and they kind of are polar opposites of one another personality-wise. So where Anna is a little bit more insecure, Ella's confident, so she kind of pulls that out of her too. So they're really working hand in hand with each other and like showing each other's strengths. So that's also been really helpful.
You guys won the UNCG Collegiate last season. How does that help build the program?
I mean, it helped tremendously. We broke all of our records, our 18, our 36, and our 54-hole scoring record. I think 6 of them had their lowest collegiate scores in that event. They loved it. It just was something nice to build on in the season with. They've always practiced at the course. They love it. So the whole semester they were kind of waiting and eager for that tournament. But it just made our records even harder to beat. But they put on their goals for this semester that they wanted to beat that one again for the 54 hole. So we'll see.
With the upcoming season, what tournament are you most looking forward to? Is the answer just the warmest one, or is it going to be a specific one?
I would say, we got into a big tournament this year. We're playing in the Maryland event right before conference. But I would say conference is the one I'm looking forward to the most. We have a little bad taste in our mouth from last year, coming in the highest ranked and then just not sealing the deal. And the girls have now gotten used to that feeling. They know what to expect now. So we're just kind of eager to get our first conference win under our belt in program history.
One more question before we open it up to everyone. What would you describe the mentality of the team? How excited, how ready are they to finally get that championship?
They put it on every single goal sheet. Every time I'm talking to them, they're always talking about conference. But what I've learned is I'm just trying to make it seem like it's just every other tournament, getting them used to, like, we've won tournaments before, it's just another one. The field, like, we can play against this field. So I think it's just getting them, it's every other day rather than like making it a big ordeal for them.
No doubt. Any questions for Coach? How do they match players up? What goes into that?
Yeah, so in conference, I don't know how our first tournament's going to go pairing-wise, but at conference, the first 1 through 4 are in stroke play. We'll get to go to match play, and you kind of want to finish the highest. If you're the first seed, you get first pick in match play. I'll research the other team, the lineup, who's playing in it, and once I say a girl's name, the other coach will say a name and then another one, and then I can go through my notes and see who I want to pair with who. So it gives you a little bit more of an advantage. And I've seen these girls play all year too, so I know the players, and maybe one isn't as great as putting. So if I put her with a player who's phenomenal in putting, that's going to scare her. Just kind of thinking of anything that might intimidate them.
Any other questions for Coach? Coach, looking forward to the season. Should be a lot of fun. Thank you, as always. We'll keep the golf rolling with men's golf. Coach Logan Davis. And we should be all set. So, Coach, your season, of course, also upcoming. You've gotten your feet wet a little bit here. How have things been in the time you've been at High Point?
It's been good. It's been a little bit of a transition, in and out of Texas, moving back and forth, but it's been really, really solid so far. We got a really good group of guys on the team, very talented team, and they've welcomed me with open arms.
How far is San Marcos from here, approximately? Because it can't be very close, is my mind.
It took me 20 hours to drive from Houston. So.
Just under a day,
Yeah.
easy trip. Easy trip.
It was easy.
Well, you surely took a lot of lessons that you learned at Texas State, brought them here. I mean, what are some of those lessons that you've kind of been wanting to instill upon the program?
Learning each player individually. Golf's an individual sport, so learning each player specifically, it goes a long way for me just because knowing each person by themselves goes a lot longer or a lot further down the road with that connection, with teaching them, with getting them to know you as well.
It's been a different offseason for you, of course, with all the move, like you mentioned. But how has the offseason preparation gone for your guys?
It's been okay. Like Lindsay said, we're a little landlocked right now. We can't get outside. We actually found a course to play on Friday, so we'll be playing on Friday, getting out, getting acclimated to the cold weather. We're staying more towards the coast this spring, so spring golf is cold, windy, and wet. And playing in the cold is not so fun, so we got to get used to it.
How do you have to adjust things when you're playing in the cold, the windy, and the wet? Because none of those sound like an ideal 18 holes if you're asking me.
It's not. But, at the same time, it's kind of a mental aspect. You got to know that everybody's playing the same course, same conditions, and at that moment, if you ever get off track on your mental aspect, it's not going to look good for you.
On the physical side, how do you try and adjust for any time you're, let's say, the short game, something like that? How do you adjust for something that's a lot faster if the greens are wet or faster?
That just comes in our practice sessions. Playing on different courses, different greens, different green speeds, getting all that set up beforehand, making sure we know what the green speeds will be like, wet, soft, conditions. That helps in our preparation for game time.
First tournament, the 3rd and the 4th of February, hosted by the College of Charleston. How do you feel like the team is getting ready for that?
We're doing good. We're actually going to be practicing after this indoors today, so we got a little team competition indoors. Looking forward to Friday, though, getting outside and playing outside on Friday, getting to see the team play in action. This will be our first round back at school Friday, but I think the preparation's gone good. They all took it upon themselves to get in the weight room, practice at home over the break, and came back prepared.
Is there any rust to shake off in your mind? How do you try and, once you get back out there on the course, do you have to, okay, we need to recalibrate a couple things, or is it one thing where, hey, they've been competing, they've been working the entire offseason, they're just ready to go?
I do think there's a little rust to shake off. You would definitely, over the winter break, you want to take some time and spend some time with your family and do things for yourself. And so I think the qualifying aspect of things beforehand is what's going to help us shake off a little bit of the rust.
Of course, everybody's working for the Big South Championships. You want to win the conference. That's everyone's goal. We heard Chelsea talk about the microscope and the telescope. In a similar vein, how do you kind of keep those goals in the back of your mind as you get through conference play?
I believe we just speak them into existence. Talking about it every day on a daily basis and letting everybody know what we're striving for. And that is at the end of the season, the Big South Conference.
Who's going to make a big leap this year in your mind? Who's a golfer that you think, they've been putting in a lot of work, they've been doing great stuff, they're going to make the big leap this year? Who in your mind, since you've been slowly getting to know everybody, has there been someone that's jumping out to you and say, I expect them or think they could explode out this upcoming year?
I'd say all of them, to be honest.
There you go.
Like I said, we got a really talented team, and once they realize how talented they are, then the sky's the limit for all of them. From 1 to 10, everybody's been very competitive since my time here, and the competitive atmosphere I really like to emphasize, just because if you're competitive at home, you're competitive on the road.
You mentioned the competition that's coming up throughout this week. What's that competition going to look like? How do you try and make them compete against one another, so to speak?
So today we have two teams, an indoor wedge competition, and then being more competitive in the qualifying aspect. So we're starting qualifying Friday, like I said, and then hopefully at least 4 or 5 more qualifying rounds before our first event, but really emphasizing trying to beat each other here, because if we could beat each other here, we're going to win on the road.
And it's always stiff competition, but hopefully it never crosses the line, right? Everybody's just competitive, but they can channel that into the match play, correct?
Correct. And, match play is a completely different ball game, because rather than going out and stroke play, you're playing the golf course. Match play, you're playing your competitor. So you got to really mentally prepare, and I plan on doing a few things here and there throughout the semester to get prepared for match play, because we'll be there.
Whether it's match or stroke play, how would you describe your coaching philosophy and coaching style when you get out there on the links?
That's a good question. I like to kind of feel it out the morning of, because each day is different, right? Each round is different. If someone specifically needs a little bit more help than another one in the middle of a round, I'll go to them. But for the most part, I'll stay on par threes or par fives. I'll let the players know what they want to know, but I won't tell them what they need to know if they don't want to know it.
When you go out and you golf, what was the biggest strength in your game?
I could hit the ball far.
That counts. That's important. That's very important. Any questions for Coach? What does the indoor practice look like?
Yes, so we have an indoor simulator room in the Steel Center on campus. It's got a TrackMan. It's a one-person hitting bay, pretty much. So we'll get in there today and take turns on wedge distances and have a little competition with that. But it's a good little room. Lindsay and I talked about putting in a little putting mat because we don't have anywhere to putt to, like a hole or anything at this moment. But that could be in the works this summer.
Any other questions for Coach? Coach, appreciate the time. Best of luck. It's right here. Golf season's here.
Sir. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
We'll go back to the hardwood. Men's basketball with head coach Alan Huss.
All right.
Coach, team's performing really well. 15-4. You just had the biggest conference home win in program history over Gardner Webb. 41 points, dominating. Congratulations are in order for that. Anytime a record is broken. How do you feel like the team is performing based on what you were expecting and how they've been doing so far?
Yeah, we're still a work in progress. We're working every day. I thought we had a great practice yesterday. We got tripped up at Asheville in a really short prep versus a team that had been sitting there for a couple of weeks waiting on us, and we played like it. They really punched us in the gut, and felt like we were chasing ghosts, just kind of a step behind, not really sure where to be in that one. So I thought going over to Charleston Southern and figuring out a way and on their home floor was a step in the right direction. And then coming back, and I don't think Gardner Webb had their best stuff. I think it was as much about them not playing up to their ability as it was what we did to them. But we were there, we capitalized, we made a few baskets, and anytime you throw a few in from deep, you have a little bit more energy on the other end.
You talked about the shooters throwing it in from deep. Chase Johnston had some threes. Trey Benham came off the bench too, had a 4 3-point game, 4 threes in that first half. How has that perimeter offense really been coming along? It seems like it's starting to really hit its stride, especially in Big South play.
Well, we designed this team. It was to be a team that could play outside in and inside out. The idea was to have enough shooting. We didn't have that a season ago, and we were fairly efficient despite our lack of shooting. But space and shooting are kind of a central component to success when it comes to offensive efficiency. There's a few different ways to achieve that. We've tried to sacrifice at times athleticism for guys that can really shoot the ball from the perimeter, and when they're going in, it looks good, and when they're not, sometimes you get performances like we had at App State where you got to grit it out a little bit.
Still a win, though. It's all about just getting the W. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter how you do them at the end of the year. It matters that you do them.
One of the things that we've talked about before is Kamani Hamilton, and you talked about the leadership that he brings on and off the floor, and I think the people here would be really interested to know just the one-of-one character that he is, because as you've said, he really is one of a kind, and he can help this team really go.
Yeah, I mean, Kamani he's an interesting human because at any given moment he will say anything to any person, me included. So you never have to wonder what he's thinking because he tells you exactly what he's thinking at any moment, and that can be really entertaining at times. And really, if you get him away from basketball and competitive spaces that come along with basketball, then it's very entertaining. He's an entertaining human being to interact with every day. I tell his parents the same thing. Kamani's a lot of fun. He really is. He makes everyone laugh. And I think to your point, his willingness to be unselfish and to have very little ego is a huge reason why we've been able to have success a year ago and why we're having some success this season. He he doesn't treat anyone differently. He doesn't care if he scores. He just wants to win, and he really is. He's really a pleasant person to be around every day.
And it's fair to say, whether he has the ball in his hands or not, he can still direct the offense in many ways, however you may need him out there with the X's and O's.
Yeah, he's really worked hard at his perimeter jump shooting. I think, unfortunately for him, at times this year, he's been a little too eager to show that, and he's taken some shots maybe that were ill-advised. But that sometimes comes along with that is, you've got this new toy and you want to play with it. You want to show everybody you can make these jump shots, and you kind of get away from what makes you really good. And what makes Kamani really good is his ability to make two players guard him. And when he makes two players guard him, when he draws that additional help defender or two help defenders, he's a willing and able passer. And that's what makes him special, not his ability to shoot the basketball. Shooting the basketball is just something he's added to it. So I think he's done a better job with his shot selection the last couple games of just picking and choosing his spots and really trying to be a facilitator first. And he's added about 15 or 16 pounds in the offseason of muscle, and he's able to flip his hips and kind of get into that back down. We call it bully ball. Some people call it Barkley, but those back down situations, and then he's really a great passer out of those situations too. So those are kind of his new toys. He's still learning how to use them and not get away from what's made him so good in the past.
Another standout on your team so far, Damarian Williams. And what impressed me most about his stat line from the last game against Gardner-Webb, he didn't make any field goals, but it still felt like he had a big impact on the game, hit 10 free throws, had some playmaking opportunities. What did you kind of see from him in that game and how he's evolved this season?
Well, I saw it in his eyes. He kind of jammed his hand and had it was all swollen. He didn't practice a couple of days going into the last game. And so I was a little worried just because he had three former teammates on that Gardner-Webb team, plus the coach that recruited him to college. And then their point guard, he and Damarian were teammates at the high school level too. So he's got all these guys. You could see it in his eyes. He wanted to play well so badly against his friends and former coaches. And so I thought he pressed a little bit. We talked about it. I didn't think he necessarily took any bad shots or anything like that, but he was just wanting to do well at such a high level that I thought it had a negative impact probably on his performance. But, he didn't let it affect the other end. He really defended. He made some free throws, and he, we talked about him maybe going out there and getting one more stretch to try to kind of get it right, and he politely declined, and we played the bench.
I mean, that's tough, though. Anytime you're going against a former team, especially in the era of the transfer portal, you see that more and more. How does he balance that kind of mental aspect of it going against a place that he used to play with, like you said, teammates, coaches, and whatnot?
Well, hopefully he'll do a little better job next time. Honestly, he played a really good game. He just didn't make shots. I think you combine the nervousness of wanting to play well against his buddies and not practicing the couple days beforehand. It probably was not a recipe for making shots at a high level.
Well, when it comes to the front court, you have a lot of front court depth. You're starting to get even more as Simon continues to round into form. What have you liked about that unit? Of course, it starts with Bodo and what he brings to the table. But even if his scoring has dropped a little bit this year, your guys have really started to show that this is a strength of the team.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we built the team the way we did. A year ago, our on-off numbers, we were a significantly worse team when we went to our bench. And we knew that was an issue. That got us when we got into foul trouble in the conference tournament, when we got into foul trouble in the CBI championship game. Each one of those games, even the games on the road, when we lost at Asheville last year and we lost at Longwood last year, we were in huge foul trouble in each of those games. So when we attacked the recruiting in the offseason, the goal was to not put ourselves in that situation. We were going to look over at the bench, and when somebody got into foul trouble or somebody got nicked up with an injury, we were going to have a second body that looked like the first body to put in there. I think we've achieved that, and it hasn't been pretty at times because we've had so many moving pieces, and we're still disjointed on both ends of the floor in stretches. But what you can see now is if you look at our on-off numbers, and when I mean that, I mean how are you? What happens to our offensive efficiency and our defensive efficiency numbers when certain guys are on the floor versus off the floor? now we've got a bench that's stronger than our starters, and that's what we wanted to have when we set out to build this team, and I think we're on our way to getting there.
Simon has soaked up a lot of those backup minutes for Bodo this year, and he's somebody that you think he's just scratching the surface of what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, Simon's terrific. He's got to get in a little bit better shape still, and he's still on a little bit of a restriction for what he can do. So he's probably not going to get in that great shape this season. It's probably more of a next season thing. But no, Simon's terrific. He's as talented as anybody on our team. He's as versatile as anybody on our team. He can really shoot the ball. He can handle it. And I think you've seen probably the last couple games. We love the idea of our 4 and 5 positions being able to handle the ball and transition. If you think about it, defensive transition systems are typically built with guards and kind of the get back guys that are back in the paint. And when you can lead the break with your 4 and 5 position, you just invert the other team's defense in ways that they're not used to practicing. And it creates some real offensive advantage for us, and especially when we have guys out there that are cerebral enough to take advantage of those mismatches. And when you've got guys like Bobby and Simon and Kamani out there, those three in particular, they can really, really take advantage of those situations and put us in positions to be effective offensively.
Bobby's another guy, speaking of the depth on this team, when he comes off the bench, it feels like he's a spark. He can distribute the basketball, he can score if he has to, and he's just a key guy that you can bring off the bench in situations, and really a luxury to have somebody like that just coming off the bench.
Yeah, Bobby is a little bit like Kamani. He's about winning, which is nice. He really doesn't care about scoring. He'll score when necessary, but he's really built like a point guard. And as good a player as Keza is, he's more of a points guard than a point guard. He's wired to score baskets first. So he's having to kind of play the game just a little differently than Bobby. We like the lineup where they're out there together. We have more handlers out there at once. And we like the idea of Bobby coming in and really trying to manufacture baskets for those guys like Chase and Trey and Simon, those guys that rely on others to make advantage for them. So he's been great in his role, and same deal. He's been a little bit nicked up. I think he's going to miss practice today. Hopefully he can get back and really get fully healthy for a stretch run.
You touched on Keza a little bit. This year he's been the focal point of opposing team scouting reports. He's had to deal with that throughout the season. How has his progression gone with handling that additional pressure?
I think it's been up and down, and this is, this deal is not unique to Keza. The preseason expectations that come along with, being the preseason conference player of the year, they are very, very difficult to manage, and I think that's been something that Keza's really had to work on both mentally and physically. You're at the top of everyone's scouting report. The other, whatever there are, the other 150 or so players in the league are all in some way, shape, or form jealous of him. And so, you've got that deal. Physically, they're coming at you. You're getting their best shot. You're getting, and then mentally, every time he touches the ball, he's trying to be the conference player of the year. And I think that's a really hard space to be in. But I think he's been humbled a little bit, and he's bounced back. And I think he's had 2 really good games in a row here. And I thought he had a terrific, just absolutely dynamic practice yesterday. He really shared the ball, and he really pushed the ball, and I think he's going to have a great stretch run for us.
Before, you've said you try and recruit offense and teach defense. In your 3 wins in the Big South, it's been 64 points a game allowed on the defensive end. And, of course, the loss against Asheville was a little higher than that. But at the same time, what have you liked from the defense? How do you think it's coming together?
Yeah, I'll talk about the Asheville one first. I thought, they had a long prep and we had a short one, and I thought they really capitalized. They just point blank had a better plan than us, and they had us. Some of the things that we try to do defensively, they really took advantage of, and that's a credit to their staff for doing that. We were able to put the fire out at the end of that game, and we were able then to bounce back against Charleston Southern on the road, second of 2 road games, fixed it and got built a little bit more inside out, and against Asheville, we got really stretched out when they took advantage of some of our switches. And that's our deal. We've got to be inside out. When we're inside out, we're very efficient defensively. despite how it may look, we're the number one rated defense in the league right now. And that should be our goal. We have the type of athletes and the type of players, and to do exactly that. And it's just a matter of kind of staying true to that process. And when we do have an outlier like Asheville, trying to figure out how to fix the problems and move on to the next one.
How key is Bodo to what you want to do on the defensive end? Does it start, like you said, on that inside with him, or is it everyone that needs to try and, hey, we need to shut off the paint, shut off the water to that?
Well, I mean, Bodo, Simon, Josh, those three are all so incredibly different that I believe in the long run it'll make our team much more difficult to play against. But in the short term, because of their different attributes that they have, really on both ends of the floor, they each do things differently than the other. Because of that, you almost have to have three separate systems for when they're in the game. Josh is really laterally gifted, can switch on the perimeter, can hard hedge out to half court. Simon is unbelievably physical, and then Bodo is a little bit of both, but then he doesn't quite have the offensive skill as the other two. So with all three of those guys, they bring something different. I think it'll help our team, but that's part of why we've been so disjointed. When you're trying to have a different system for each of them, and then when one of those guys misses time, it's taken a long time to get everyone up to speed in each of those systems. So I'm excited about where it's going, but we all understand we're just not there yet.
It always takes time. No, there's no doubt about it. As a believer in analytics, I know that's something that you've talked about throughout the show and whatnot. How has the team improved analytically this season, whether it's on offense or defense? It always takes time to institute a system. Anytime a new head coach comes in, they institute a new system. But what has your team kind of improved upon analytically?
I mean, offensively, we're pretty good right now. We're up to the 12th or 13th best offense and raw points of possession in the country, which is where we should be. We kind of had a goal going into the season to be a top 10 offense in the country. And that's what we should be and what we were designed to be. Defensively, we were down around 300, which is not where we wanted to be, but we're all the way up to about 180 in the raw and about 250 in the adjusted now. Like I said, through 4 games of the conference, we're number one in both categories, and again, that's our goal each game. Probably the number one area, that hasn't been talked about enough is we have not defensively. We haven't rebounded on the defensive end like we need to. A year ago, we were in the top 10 in the country for most of the year in defensive rebounding percentage at about 24%. We're giving up about 30% offensive rebounds this season. And, that 6% increase is really hurt us. It's something that we work on daily. Part of that's schematics, part of it's personnel, part of it's desire, but all of it needs to be fixed. And we're working diligently to do just that.
Is there a way to teach rebounding just in general, or is it one of those things where, of course, you can draw up something with the X's and O's, but does a lot of it just come down to what's between the ears? Say, hey, you got to go out there, you got to grab the ball, you got to want it. What goes into that?
Well, part of it honestly started with we went to switching a lot of 1 through 4 off-ball actions this year. We didn't do that. So what that's done is that's allowed Kamani Hamilton to go out there and guards away from the basket more. I think that helps our first shot defense, but that also moves Kamani Hamilton 30 feet from the basket a lot of the time, so he's not in a position to just go grab 5 or 6 defensive rebounds in a game quite like he was. He's got to be a little bit more high-motored to go get those rebounds, and part of it is just we made more of an emphasis to be better with our blockouts, and we're just kind of standing there watching. And, we really emphasized holding our blockouts in the off season this year, and as opposed to last year just kind of hitting and going to get the ball. And we've kind of gone back to that now, where we just make contact and we're trying to attack the ball now. So it's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. There's certainly some strategy and some coaching that goes into it. There's some desire that goes into it, and part of it is the reason we can make 13, 14, 15 threes in a game is we play guys that. You look out there, and I love Chase. Hopefully he doesn't watch this. You look at Chase and you look at the guy he's guarding, and if it comes down to a straight athleticism contest, there's times where he's just got to figure out a way to survive those.
He just had a birthday, throwing him under the bus.
I'll tell you this: Chase might not win the jumping contest, but he would definitely, with both golf coaches here, he wins the golfing contest. He's a one handicap. That's got to be best in our league.
Really? How does he have time to get out there on the links when he's shooting all those threes? I mean, he's nailing threes in games.
I think that's what you do in the summertime: shoot a few jumpers and go out to the golf course.
Seems like a pretty good gig Chase Johnson has then right now.
Absolutely.
Well, the team right now coming up on this game against Longwood, it's ESPNU. It's a national broadcast. It's a big-time game. What does that exposure mean for you and your program?
I think it's always great to be on TV. You just, you get back to your phone after you play on ESPN versus ESPN Plus. And it's 10-1 in people that reach out to you that just you haven't heard from in a while. So, it's neat. It's good. It's a great opportunity for the school. Great opportunity for our program to be seen by eyes that maybe wouldn't see us otherwise. It also puts a big stress on us because that game moves to Thursday, and again on Saturday we play a Presbyterian team who's pretty good and also is coming off another week off. So we get another deal where team's been sitting there waiting for a week, and we've got 30 some odd hours to prepare. So. It's a blessing to be able to get out there and be seen. It also puts a stress on the back end, and we've got to be really disciplined to bounce back and perform well on the second part of that.
What does that abbreviated scout look like? I know you guys play in MTEs. You play a couple games in a couple consecutive days, but how do you try and compress all that knowledge into a 36-hour window?
So typically, just so everyone understands, typically a scout is a 2-day prep. You go through, this afternoon we'll go through their personnel. We'll watch stuff before practice. Then we'll go through their probably most common 8 to 10 actions on the floor live. We'll break down conceptually their 4 or 5 most things that we think could potentially be troublesome for us. We'll go through those. We'll go through their special teams. And then after practice, we'll watch things we didn't do very well. Then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll do an abbreviated version of the same thing. But all in, probably about an hour's worth of time will be committed to them, doing live actions on the floor, making sure we understand what we're doing. Some of the stuff's just trusting our principles, but others are maybe slight deviations from what would be just our normal principle here or there with a certain action or a certain concept. When you come back on a Thursday, Saturday, especially a Saturday day game where you don't get a shoot around, then we'll practice it again tomorrow for an hour, or Thursday we'll practice again. So we'll go an hour before the day, leading up to the day of the game. We'll do another hour the day of the game, making sure that we understand exactly what we're doing. And then, like when we played Asheville, we had about 16, 17 total minutes to get everything done. So, just not quite the same level of detail, and it'll be similar when we play Presbyterian on Saturday. That's why we've got to be sound enough in our principles and disciplined enough in our principles to where we don't fail in areas that we've practiced for the entire season.
How do you keep the guys rested in such a quick turnaround, not only physically but mentally, because that's a lot for any player to try and grasp in that short time frame?
I don't know that there's a good answer. We'll get back on Thursday and we'll do a recovery lift. We're to focus on trying to get them to bounce back, and we'll use all the resources available to ice and take care of bumps and bruises and get those guys back so we can do 25, 30 minutes on the floor on Friday to prepare, and then Saturday hopefully they're ready to hook them up.
Longwood's 13-6 this year. They're 2-2 in the Big South. They've improved as well. What have you seen from them in the preliminary tape?
With Longwood, everything comes down to physicality. Defensively, especially, they've struggled with their 2-point field goal percentage this season, which is uncharacteristic of them. Typically, they keep the ball out of the paint. They really keep their shell defense in place. It's really difficult to fracture their shell. They switch a lot of 1-4 ball screens and off-ball actions, and they really keep in those shell defensive spots, keep you out of the paint. They are missing Shimon Zapala this year, who's the starting center at Michigan State now. He obviously was a big rim protector in there last season, and also an anchor offensively. They do have Elijah Tucker back, who is the other big guy that started last season for them. So they've got some pieces returning, and they're going to be really physical, really tough. They're elite on the offensive glass. it's just with us, it's a matter of handling their physicality, especially at home. ESPN game, on television and Thursday night, and us coming to town. I'm sure it'll be probably the biggest crowd they have all season, and the fans will be hooked up, and it'll be a great opportunity to find out where we are and get out there and swing away and see if we can handle it all.
Even as a defense-first program, Longwood, they're still averaging nearly 80 points a game. What do they show on the offensive end? That's not a small total.
Yeah, they're number one in our league. Firstly, at causing turnovers, they cause turnovers on about 21% of possessions, which is number one in our league. To compare that, we create turnovers on about 13% of our possessions. So they get out and they run off turnovers a lot. They run off misses. When they make you miss, they get off. They got 3-4 different guys that can push the ball on the break and invert you defensively. And then, when they make 3 perimeter shots, and they're a little streaky, but when McClurg and Christmas and Brizzy and some of these guys start throwing in threes, they're difficult. And maybe what makes them even more difficult is they've got 2 left-handed point guards in Luke and Garland that are both kind of a little bit different than anybody else we play this season, because they're both very comfortable in the mid-range area. Typically shots that we're willing to concede is kind of their strength. And so kind of recalibrating our defense and making sure that we understand that those are high-value opportunities for them, and being ready to contest those shots without fouling, I think is of critical importance also.
You alluded to Michael Christmas. His shooting numbers a little bit down this year in relative to what they've been in the past, but he's still their leading scorer. How do you try to game plan for him? Is he the head of the snake, or is there more of a, hey, we need to try and just limit this or this, X, Y, Z?
I think it starts with those 2 lefty point guards, keeping them off their left hands, keeping them out of the paint, understanding that both of them are going to make some mid-range jump shots, not putting our heads down when they do make those. And then for us, it always starts and stops with this. Our first shot defense has been pretty solid most of the season. We've got to rebound the basketball. When we get them to miss that first shot, they're going to take a lot of perimeter jump shots most likely. We've got to go track down long rebounds. We got to win those 50-50 battles. Then we got to turn that into transition offense.
You touched on Colby Garland as well, one of those lefty